Okay, well, hello everybody. So today is a pretty fun video. I want to talk about the idea of how we're evolving into beings of pure imagination. You know, great thinkers of our time, you've always heard them speaking about the idea that, imagination's more important than anything. And, of course, in the society we live in, especially the one we've lived in for quite some time, how many hundreds of years, the idea of imagination sounds kind of silly, like sounds like something like a kid would have, but as an adult, you're supposed to grow up and snap out of that, So we've lived in this world that's been more, the things we value are more, success, money, material things. When you meet somebody, what do they have? What kind of job do they have? What have they attained? What have they succeeded in? But you rarely hear someone talk about someone and say, "Hi, yeah, this is my friend Steve." And then you never ask them, "Oh, you normally just say, yeah, what do you do? What's your job?" But you never ask them, what's your imagination like? So we don't really value it that much. But if you look at the way the world is evolving, we're going back to that place again of pure imagination. You always hear these terms of how, we create our own reality and, whatever, we all live in our own little universe, and everything that happens, we manifest in our own little universe, and, and these sort of things can sound kind of, they sound a little boo-woo. But then when you really think about it, it's basically exactly what we're evolving into. Because there's togetherness and separation. And that cycle probably just goes on forever. Kind of like the metaphor that I always use, like the Big Bang, everything's in this one little dot and then it explodes into infinite separate pieces. And then eventually emerges back into one, and it does the same thing over and over again. So once you have this separation and we have our own individual egos and we're playing these characters, we eventually start merging back together. But another interesting that's happening is this idea of creating our own reality in our own universe. So what do I mean by that? Well, so we have YouTube now, right? I have this YouTube channel, you have your YouTube channel, we all got all these YouTube channels, and we're all having fun, doing our thing. I hear a lot of people saying, YouTube used to be great back in the day, but I feel like, I don't know if YouTube's that great anymore. I'm hoping for a new YouTube, Everyone's looking for a new YouTube. Or you might hear someone say, "Oh, I wish I had gotten on YouTube like when it first started, because I feel like now, I'm kind of lost in a shuffle. There's so many channels and so many videos that so there's a lot of people hoping and wishing for this new YouTube. Now, what does a new YouTube have to do with evolving and the infinite imagination and all this stuff, you're probably wondering. Well, I think the only thing that's going to overtake YouTube, because there are smaller upload video channels, but they're basically very similar to YouTube. So what's the new YouTube, or what's the new thing that's going to merge us closer into this world of pure imagination? Well, I think the thing that will eventually take YouTube over will be a service where, you know how we all have our own separate little YouTube channels? Well, it's basically like not only do we have our own separate YouTube channels, but basically we create our own separate universe. And the people who we have interactions with are the people who we invite to have interactions with. Now, doesn't that sound kind of very familiar with this whole metaphysical concept of how we all live in our own individual universes, and all the interactions we have are people who we invite into our universe that we collectively choose to have an experience with? And you're probably thinking, yeah, but Tony, but how on earth does that work with a new YouTube? Well, I think what's going to eventually take over YouTube is a virtual reality version of YouTube, which is basically like, not only do we all have our own separate channels, but we merge and communicate with each other through this virtual reality. So I have a channel, right? But the only way you interact with me is by watching my video, right? But in this new form of interaction, we all individually create our own virtual world. So let's say you create your own virtual living room. So then you invite a couple of people and you do this podcast or this show, this YouTube show with people. You're all together in this virtual living room. So you think, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. So this new YouTube's going to be virtual. So we don't just have our own channels, but I create my own virtual living room, and then I invite you to come into my world, and we sit down on the couch. And you think, okay, yeah, I kind of get that. I see where you're going with that. But that's a little over dramatic to call this that we're evolving into pure imagination. What do you mean by all this? I mean, yeah, I get it. You created a virtual living room, and now we're interacting together in this virtual space. I get it. Well, you have to understand, it's basically like starting from scratch again. Now, what do I mean by starting from scratch again? Well, philosophically speaking, if you talk about the idea of like, once upon a time you were nothing but just pure awareness in this void, and then you just had to start creating these landscapes to have experiences in. You know, at first it could have been something simple like a room, like a living room with 4 walls, and you experienced your first form of limitation. You're bounded by these 4 walls, but then you got more creative. And the whole game was, what kind of world can you create to live in? It was just a world of pure imagination, right? You're just consciousness, and then you have to create these realities for you to live in. So now you sort of understand where I'm going with this. So these virtual spaces we all individually create and invite people to have an experience with them in, what are they going to be limited by eventually when technology is good enough? Only by your imagination. So the beauty and the intricacy and just the wonder of this virtual space you create where you invite people to have experience with you is only going to be limited by your own imagination. So when I say I'm going to create this virtual space like a living room where you can come and we can have an interaction, that's nice, but that's just the beginning. So what else can you create? Well, I don't know. Somebody created something else, and somebody else created something else. And then what's the game then? It's not about money or about fame or about like material things. It's about how far can your imagination go? So then you have a friend and he's like, hey, I'm going to invite you into my virtual space. And you're thinking, oh, that's cute. Sure, why not? And then you step into their virtual space and it blows your mind. You're thinking, oh, wow, how did you create this? And they have the most mind-blowingly beautiful virtual world that they've created, and they show you around. They're like, yeah, come with me, you know. And then there's this, and then I created this, and then your mind is blown. So you're thinking, oh wow, I got to step up my game. So then you go back and it stirs your imagination. So then you're thinking, oh, I got to up my game. So then you start like exploring your creativity, and you enhance your virtual world, and you create different things. And you're probably thinking, whoa, Tony, you're getting out of hand here. What are we going to do? Live in these like virtual worlds? We're going to escape reality? But then you have to ask yourself, what is reality? What exactly are we escaping? I know it's cheesy and cliche to say, but what if we really are just living in a reality inside of another reality, inside, you know, a simulation within a simulation with a simulation, a dream within a dream within a dream? Because what else can existence be other than mirrors of the same thing, right? Because if you take it back to source, nothingness, and all there is this void and your awareness, what do? Well, you create realities to experience, right? So it started from that. So naturally, you would just have a fractal of that, a mirror of that, right? So that's all we're really doing, just creating realities within realities within realities. Why? Because what else can you do, right? If we're just consciousness having an experience, what else can you do other than just create different realities to have an experience within? So then what's your limitation? Just your imagination. That's it. That's all we're dealing with. The only limitation we ever have is just imagination. So it's sort of, this is how it just keeps repeating itself. Whether it's digitally, with technology, whether it's organically, everything just goes back to two things: connection and imagination, right? You have this, everything's one in this one single dot and explodes in separate pieces and then emerges back into one. And that cycle goes on and on and on. And within that cycle of togetherness, separation, what do you have? Imagination, pure imagination. And, you know, the internet has connected. What's the internet doing? It's like a digital version of connection again, you know? All of our consciousness is linking into one. This whole world is completely connected now. We're becoming together again. We were separated, and now we're almost becoming like a collective consciousness, merging into one. And when you're not limited by anything anymore, all you're left with is imagination. And so all these sort of woo-woo metaphysical talks, when you've always heard people say like, oh, you know, we create our own realities, and we just, all the interactions we have with other people are people who we've invited to share this reality with. And you think, well, yeah, that sounds kind of woo-woo and stuff, but what are we going to start doing soon? Literally exactly that. We are all going to create our own virtual worlds, and then we're going to invite whoever we want to invite to have experiences within these beautiful worlds that we create. So when I say the world is evolving into pure imagination, well, that's what we're doing. So that was my little dive into pure imagination, and now it's your turn to take that wherever you want to take it. That's our job. That's all we're left with when the bills are paid and we don't have to worry about these primal survival things. The only thing we're left is, where can your imagination take you? And that's all we got. So I hope that inspires you a bit to maybe explore your imagination a bit. And we'll leave it at that for now. And I'll see you in the next video. So take care, guys. Bye.